Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And Merry Christmas, Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League fans. Welcome into the 2024 MFHL Podcast Christmas Special here on your home for MFHL Hockey, on your home for hockey in Manitoba, on G-Show Productions, on gshow.ca. I'm your host, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth. We're brought to you by Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, and Terrico, as well as... all those lovely sponsors that are sponsoring us here today, as well as Terrico, as I should say. But yeah, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, hoping that everyone's had a wonderful day up until this point. If you're watching this after Christmas and you celebrated the holiday, I hope that you had a great one, spending it with friends, family, whoever you may be spending it with, and got everything you wanted, had some good food, and yeah, shared some great times, some great memories with, like I said, family, friends, whoever you care about that you spent this year's holiday with. Want to also wish everyone, happy holidays and a happy new year to everyone as well. I hope that the year of 2025 brings you a lot of joy and all the best coming up this year. And for us here on G-Show Productions, we can't wait to be running this podcast coming up, as we're going to be starting our road to the West Regionals portion of the MFHL podcast once 2025 hits, once we are back in the new year. As for this one, though, we got one guest joining the show. That is Brad Kirk, president of this league in the MFHL. Had a chance to ask him about just the overall feel of how the season's been going so far. We talk about Brandon, with them being added in as the ninth team, with teams being now accustomed to playing games against them, with them involved in the league. What's the overall thinking, as well as talking about how this year's playoff format is going to be working out, since there are now 9 teams. Teams, by the way, are going to be playing more than 28 regular season games, as me and Brad are going to be discussing, and of course there is a 8 versus 9 playing best of 3 to determine the final 8 teams who make it into the playoffs. So you're going to be able to get some information about how the MFHL has been operating this year, and much more, coming up here with Brad Kirk on this edition of the MFHL podcast for the final time in 2024 on our Christmas special. The league president joining the show next. Well, it's Brad Kirk joining this Christmas edition of the MFHL podcast. Brad, as of recording this, we're 2 days away from the big day. How have things been around the Kirk household getting set for this year's Christmas festivities?
Yeah, it's been great. Personally, it's nice to have both kids back home. My son got home about a week or so ago, and he's out in school out west. And then my daughter got home on Sunday. They played on Saturday against Montreal. She got her first start in the PWHL,
Yeah.
and had a great game. Didn't get at least got a point out of it. Lost an OT, but nice to have her home at least for a few days until they have to head back again.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, Reagan Kirk, I've talked about her many times when I've interviewed you, Brad. And yeah, I mean, not only is she on to the PWHL now, but a national champion last year with Ohio State. I mean, as a father, and yeah, I guess as a father, I mean, how proud does it truly make you at this point, seeing Reagan continuing to shine?
Yeah, it's we are truly blessed. It's quite amazing to watch somebody when you think of back in the day of doing Timbits hockey, and where it was more about going out for a coffee or a hot chocolate, sorry, or a donut afterwards, and your feet are cold and whining about that all the time, to something like getting her name called on CBC and the color commentary. It's quite we're all very proud, and the whole family is incredibly proud. It's quite amazing that family all across North America and even globally, for that matter, are where they can going and watching. So.
Oh, amazing for sure. And given props to, I mean, an amazing talent that is Reagan Kirk. Most notably, I mean, back to her MFHL days, Brad, she was probably the biggest reason why Eastman ended up being champs back in 2018-19. Eastman has one heck of a team this year. They're among the top teams in the standings, second heading into the break. Yeah, talk about, how impressive it's been to see that group look to take an even further step so far this year.
Yeah, yeah, no, they've really come along. I mean, when you look at the stats, I mean, they're the Avros and them are fighting for that top spot. I mean, the only difference is one game right now, right? That the Avros have got, but those two have been bouncing back and forth. The big difference between those two teams. I mean, they've got an impressive goaltending duo. I think they've got the least amount of goals against of all the teams. The Avros are a team, I believe, that has the most goals for. So it's quite the tale of two of opposites, and I think when the two go head to head, it's a fun game between the two. I haven't looked to see if they've split the series so far, who's winning, but I know Eastman just won, but I think it was like a 1-0 game or something like that. So it tells you how tight those games are. But it's yeah, it's fun to watch those games. Like they're very tight, and that team has really come together. A lot of good work by the coaching staff over a number of years, and just pulling things together.
Oh, for sure. And just to answer your question, Brad, it is split in the season series right now. Winnipeg took the first matchup 2-1 in a shootout, and of course, here on G Show Productions, we broadcasted Eastman's 1-0 OT win. So yes, very close indeed between those two teams. And we're starting to see other teams start to, move further up the standings. Winnipeg Ice is starting to play more games. They're now in third place. Yellowhead's been getting stronger as the season's gone along. Pembina Valley is 4 points behind Yellowhead as well. Every single team to this point has a win. We talk about it every year, the competitiveness and I guess the parity at this point through the middle of the standings so far.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Like when you look at the middle, like I think even Yellowhead, they beat the Avros the other week
Yep.
or this past weekend, right? And it's just how close those games are. And when you look at, there doesn't seem to be a guaranteed win kind of thing anymore. You really have to work at it. I think at the start of the season, you saw a few more of the big blowouts. That can happen as teams are just trying to get their feet wet, trying to figure each other out, and even within the team, right? Who's the leader and who's the one that you got to lean on for key points of the game. Now teams have settled in, and like you have at least a minimum. I mean, Brandon hasn't. They've only played 15 games so far. Two of them have been canceled due to weather, right? So they should be at 17. So they should be close to the other ones. But they've just had the way their schedule has worked has been a little bit not as much as what the Avros and some of the other teams have. But Brandon has come back, right? And there's a few games where they've got 5 wins so far, right? And for a team that's brand new, you wouldn't expect that. So it's good, right? You get a lot of parity in that middle pack. That any team can beat, and any team can beat the Avros and the Eastmen and Ice as well. So
Oh, for sure. And we've seen, teams like Interlake even take the average to only a one goal win, a few weeks ago. And yeah, it's great to see still those teams near the bottom, giving some of these top teams some battles, some fights so far this year, as it usually goes in the Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League. But speaking of Brandon, we spoke about them. I believe at the start of the year, Brad, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head now. Me and you had a conversation about it. Now that we're, at the Christmas break, the I guess holiday break point in the year, what's kind of the consensus now from around the league having Brandon as that ninth new addition into this really competitive league already?
Yeah, I mean it's great to have those girls to or that team to come in. I mean there was enough players within that particular region to ice a team. I mean it did take away from the Westmans, right? I mean the Westman is those two regions always combined and for many years, and so there was this. Every year it was slightly different as to did Westman have more Brandon players or did they have more Westman players, right? There was no like every year was always Brandon players, that kind of stuff. There's many years where it was mostly Westman. So I think what you're seeing by having that ninth team, it sort of changed things a little bit out in the West and how those teams work. So it is great to have Brandon. They're able to ice a competitive team already, like getting that many wins. Long term is having 9 teams in our league the right number. That's still up for debate as to what is that right number within the league. 9 teams makes it really hard to schedule, and with a 32 game schedule, that's a lot of games. And with the number of weekends and the fact that a lot of teams have had to play 3 game weekends, it's not ideal. I hated, I'm the one that does the scheduling. I hated doing 3 game weekends, but there literally is no choice. Nobody wants to play during the week, and because they don't want to play in the week, you only got Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's not much you can do. And with blackouts and everything, we only have 16 weekends in order to fit 32 games. It's hard to do. So
Yeah, no doubt, and that's a lot of hockey, and even though it's like a full season worth, like yeah, it's changed things quite a bit it seems with this ninth team in. But in talking about that, how I feel like maybe the biggest argument would be like you mentioned, it takes away teams or players from teams like Westman or teams from outside, of those Winnipeg teams more so. Is there? Anything the league's kind of trying to look at, I guess those areas, has there been discussions in terms of maybe, I guess, looking at ways in terms of attracting more talent into more rural areas? I know that obviously there's zones in this league, and obviously there's been some improvements throughout, but given that there's more teams now, does that kind of put some more difficulties in finding, more players throughout, these teams to boast teams?
yeah, I think one of the areas. I mean, the big competition. There's 2 big competitions. One is the high school hockey league, right? Although that is more Winnipeg based, there's close to 450, 500 players within that. And granted, there are a number of players in our league that also play high school, right? It kind of depends where you live. So you do have the opportunity to try to recruit, or not recruit, that's a bad way to put it, but to try to attract those players to come and play in our league. It may be harder for the ones out west where they don't necessarily have high school programs, but you can do that in the Winnipeg and sort of the capital region. I think the other part is, I know St. Mary's is shutting down at the end of this season. And so there's a pool of players that are Manitoba based that'll be looking for a home. And so the hope is that those players will naturally come into our league. Yes, some may try to go to BH or the rink, or even Pile Mound for that matter. But I think we offer a much more competitive product, and the fact that you can stay home, right, and you can play in front of your families. Some of those the accredited sports schools don't have that opportunity to do that as much, other than for some of the showcases that they host. So I think that's part of it, where you can make it more attractive for them to stay within the province because it is a competitive product.
Yeah, and I know obviously like players that are looking for places to play that take the sport seriously or maybe looking to, continue their playing career to that next level in university. So given that, is that something the league's gonna double down on, really talking about how this is a league for high level U18 AAA hockey players first, but it's about the student and the athlete first.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've done a good job of promoting. So when we find out about commitments, right? That's one example. We make sure we promote those commitments. And but we've also encouraged all of our teams that it's not always just about the hockey. All right, that if there is something else that they want to celebrate, we do have a good social media presence and a number of platforms to get that information out. So if somebody is winning some sort of an academic award, a scholarship. We've got a great scholarship program, either through the league or through a private group, in order to celebrate the success of the players in our league and what they're moving on to in the future. So I think the more that we can celebrate, either the commitments to playing post-secondary, so you're attending school and playing hockey, and it doesn't matter where, but you're having that, but also some of the other successes. Like we've had players in the past that haven't gone down for post secondary, aren't doing the hockey route. They're playing baseball, right? They're playing soccer. They're playing other sports, and we celebrate those. So folks realize that you can be a phenomenal student athlete within our league, and then go on to something else in the future.
Yeah, and we've seen many of examples of that throughout these past few years, for sure. Most notably, I know that Pembina Valley's had some players that have gone out and played softball. I believe last name was the player. I'm trying to remember off the
Yeah.
top of my head. There's
No, it
so many
starts with an M, but I can't quite remember. Yeah, you're right. So
been so many players I've talked to throughout these
yeah.
past few years in this great league, Brad, and adding to it this year, of course, with the ninth team, there's going to need to be a play-in series with how the playoff format is done this year. It's going to be, I believe, a best of three, and then that eight-team playoff picture will be set in February. Talk about, I guess, kind of this change in the league, how you see it kind of playing out this year going into the playoffs, something a bit different.
Yes. But I think where it lines up a little bit with what we did last year, where we tried to give teams a break after the end of the season, and then you basically started the week later. All we're doing is, instead of actually having a break, 7 of the 9 teams will get a break,
Yeah.
and the eighth and ninth will have to play a best of three. And the reason why we chose a best of three, it's really around timing. Like, you cannot fit a best of five in less than 7 days. It just doesn't work. So you have to do a best of three. And then with the rest of the schedule, when you have to get into Westerns and all that kind of stuff, you've got to be done within a certain time. So that it really is around the scheduling to make sure, because we finish February 14th or whatever that Sunday is. And so best of three kind of works. Having, doing something different. I think there's probably other ways that you could do that, like even having the ninth not even make playoffs. And I think the early discussions around that was really, that's not an option. We wanted it, that there's no reason why the ninth place team couldn't go on a run and take it. Right? It would be a great story, but not even giving them that opportunity doesn't make sense. And I think giving the rest of the teams, a little bit of a break, to at least, lick those wounds and the bruises and the bumps and all that kind of stuff. Have a little bit of practice time before you get into the meat of playoffs. Will help that. It doesn't help the eighth and ninth, but it's kind of, this is a way we thought would work. It is closely matching what we did last year and having that 1 week break, but we just do have a series at that time.
Yeah, and I think that it's really no fun if you don't have all 9 teams with a chance to at least, get into the playoffs. And I think that having it that way, even though it's not a best 3 out of 5, knowing that it's like a play-in qualifying type of series, I think that it does make a lot of sense in that way. I know that scheduling has a huge part to do with it, but having the best 2 out of 3 for that series specifically makes a lot of sense for sure. But yeah, West Regionals last year, they were in Winnipeg. This year, they're going to be somewhere in Saskatchewan, depending on who ends up winning that league. Must be exciting now, knowing that we're getting into pretty much almost the final month of the season and knowing how competitive things are, and knowing, there's a lot of pride on the line this year going in, Brad, to this series, given that the Saskatchewan League is owned Manitoba throughout the past little while and has gotten the best of our best team the last 2 years in the Winnipeg Ice.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they've, as you know, it's a different model out there. So it's not quite an apples to oranges comparison between it, at least in how they source their players. So as you mentioned before, we're regional specific, whereas they are province wide, right? But the fact is that the ice came so close 2 years in a row of moving on, and that it's just a goal here or there. So it's really tight. We have that opportunity. We've had teams go away to different showcase events and fare well against other teams from other provinces. Most notably the Eastman and the Avros at different events they've been at this year, and taking those events. And I think Eastman, if both teams played teams from Saskatchewan, I'm not 100% certain. I didn't look back at those events, but they've done well. So I think we have a good shot. We have a good shot every year, and it'll be fun to watch, right? It'll be fun to go there, and the types of whoever makes it through have that opportunity to play. It's a great opportunity for many of the players to go out and play somebody different, right?
Sure.
And not at a showcase event. I mean, it's a different when you're doing playoffs to go on to the SO Cup. It's a whole level of stress and fun and excitement, and to have that chance to represent your region at a national championship.
Well, we were, yeah, there last year for the West Regionals at the Hockey for All Center, and those were just the qualifiers, right, Brad, to get to the SO Cup, and it felt like that atmosphere picked itself up quite a bit as those games were going along last year. But no matter who it may be out of the 9 teams in the MFHL that is going to be taking on the winner of that Saskatchewan League, can't wait to see it all unfold as we get into our road to the West Regionals to the ESO Cup
Yeah,
starting in 2025. Brad Kirk, president of the MFHL, I'll give you the final words here, Brad. Great to have you on the show. I'll give you a chance to say some final thoughts and a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays out to all of our MFHL viewers.
yeah. Thanks again for reaching out. This is great. I mean, hopefully your listeners get a chance to watch a game. Whether or not they've got family that's playing. It's a great night. It's a great entertain. It's a cheap entertainment to go. Nothing beats a Friday night in the barn, watching some fantastic hockey, and some of these players that'll go on to something else. Whether it be college, national team, wherever it might be. PWHL, it doesn't really matter. Like there's lots of players that'll move on to that. So always encourage folks to support their local teams, or any team if you happen to be in a community and want to watch a game. Website has all the information on where the games are. So I want to thank you again, and wish you and all your listeners a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And Brad Kirk joining this edition of the Manitoba Female Hockey League podcast for our Christmas special here in 2024, brought to you by McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico, and Goaltenders. As for the standings in the MFHL heading into the break, it's the Avros on top, 38 points compared to the second place Eastman Slugs, who have 36. Eastman now with a game in hand on the Winnipeg Avros, though, and they, of course, split in the season series so far. To this point in the games that have been played. 2 more matchups between the two coming up this year. As for the Winnipeg Ice, they've moved up to, of course, third place in the standings. The Yellowhead Chiefs with a strong past weekend of games, upsetting the Avros 2-1 in extra time, winning and getting to only 2 points behind the Winnipeg Ice heading into the break. Interlake and Central Plains both at the bottom of the standings in that play-in series right now. But Central Plains has moved up to a tie with Brandon in the standings, even though they got 5 more games played than the Wheat Kings. What we're going to do coming up next is we're going to show you some goals, all the goals and some of the best plays from the matchup that we covered 2 weekends ago now. The Winnipeg Ice took on the Eastman Selects down at the Hockey for All Center. So we're going to roll that tape coming up next, and then what we got in store still is going to be just me once again taking a look at all teams, kind of breaking them down at this point in the season, talking about, what I think maybe needs to happen in 2025 in the upcoming part of the schedule for these teams to, make adjustments and whatnot. So that's all coming up next. We're going to have power rankings as well as showing you all the stats leaders from around the MFHL heading into Christmas break with Rio Pierre leading the way. We'll talk about her and much more coming up next on the Christmas special of the MFHL podcast here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca.
Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Still controlled by this Ice team as Chavlik gets a pass up to Walker at the point. Chavlik, nice job to stay with this puck. Her shot turned aside by Labossiere, banging away at it afterwards. But Labossiere able to smother that to the Selects and giving chase. Normando able to get there first. So nice move by Delaney Rigaud, dangling into the inside on Chloe Nicholas. She continues with it. Low shot rebound there, but just out of the reach for, leave number 9, Grenier, to do anything with it. Side of the net, Callie Remillard, that is, now out in front, but Delaney Rigaud can't pull the trigger, banging away at it, but Grunwald able to hold the line. Numbers against this Ice team, but not anymore as the Ice able to get fresh legs on. Nice move by Woznetsensky. Woznetsensky dangles and gets it to the front of the net, but couldn't be put away there. Now picked up by Abby Dixon, the captain. Plays it up with the backhand of Veda Rigaud. Whips this across to Beavis. Beavis, her shot through off the post, scores! Heidinger still with it into the middle, front of the net. Shanskaka gets it to Dixon somehow, and Dixon turned aside there. Into the neutral zone, now picked up by the Selects team once again, who reverse it cross ice, pass towards the boards. That shot, oh, what a goal by Heidinger! Puck sent out, just chipped out past the boards, and now here's a 2-on-1 developing. Man has Carvalho with her. Carvalho, her shot scores! The Selects truly just surviving this one now. Oh no, an error here from the Winnipeg Ice. Delaney Rigaud puts it into the empty net.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of MMJHL Game Day on G-Show Productions. As the house suddenly packing here in St. Vital. It's a big hit laid on the boards there, and Brady Jaquette. The Vicks got the scoring started in this one here tonight. So it was Luke Elliott short-handed. Rory Neal, but into his skates. This pass a bit intercepted with by number 26, coming down for the Vics, Dango, and scores another short-handed goal for the Victorias. Number 9 in Tristan Arneson, as Arneson plays it towards the line for Romanek. Arneson calling for the pass back, doesn't get it, instead goes across, that shot scores! So I believe, no, it was number 22 in Osterman, as Osterman now banks this out off the boards, all the way down where Dayton Kiesman recovers, as no, there's some physical stuff going down just by the Victoria's boards, as I believe it's number 2 and Evan Philippe to Magnus Carlson, but couldn't. Is this now up to the point to Neal, feeds the Cedars and scores! The pace really picking up here suddenly as we get back to 5-on-5 play. As Dayton Kiesman has this stripped away. Here's Arneson now into the slot, but that deflected out of. Of course, adding on to that total recently. This taken away now out in front, but sprawling out to make that save, getting the blocker on it. Number 29 in Penner. From height. Is out the point. Salamanca, his shot tipped in, scores! 4 unanswered now for this Canucks team. So it'll be the Vics on a break. Aiden Anderson trying to shoot, but has his pocket picked by Magnus Enerson because of it. Ashton Romanek the other way now. Oh, he gets blown up in the middle of the Victoria zone. So we're into the final minute of play of this one, brought to you by Terrico and goaltenders. Connor Murphy looks to be perfect, but cannot end off this period. As the Vics back onto the board. Number 26 in Gilson tried to work it to the slot, but couldn't get it there. So that pass missed. Tristan Arneson holds on to this puck strongly. Now plays it to the middle. Tic-tac-toe. And in the back of the net for Griffin Height. As it's the 5th of the period for this junior Canucks team as they celebrate. Chips this in, or rather redirected it, as this now turned over, picked off by, I believe, Gillison. Tic-tac-toe scores! As it's currently a 5-4 Canucks lead. As that, a huge block by Nolan Anderson, kicks it up to himself afterwards. Has Rubini with him as well. Rubini, oh, a nice defensive play on the back check from Rory Neal. Under a minute 30 left on this man advantage. Have to take advantage of what looks like a golden opportunity. Kiesman struggles out the line to drop that back. It's stripped away by Osterman. Strong to the net. Osterman tried to dangle on Penner, but gets through to Rubini. An absolute track meet this is turned into, and now it's Degagne who strips away Rubini of the puck. Has Neal with him. Degagne over Neal, but oh, what a clutch defensive stick by Blake Lee. Touch back up to number 3. To Gilson, across, threaded to Anderson, his shot, oh, huge block by number 22 in Osterman as this gets all the way down, sticked away by the Canucks. Dane Kiesman tries to hold it in, but it'll be Tristan Arneson. Now a 6-point night for him. His first goal of the evening to send this Canucks team home with 8.9 seconds left. And welcome back to the MFHL Christmas special, everybody, for 2024. I'm your host, of course, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth. Joining me in this episode was Brad Kirk, president of the Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League. It was great to talk to him, get some insight from, of course, the head of the league president himself, Mr. Brad Kirk. And yeah, also showed the wrong set of Winnipeg Ice Eastman Selects highlights. That was from the first game we covered between the two teams.
this season, which Eastman ended up winning. The most recent game the Winnipeg Ice took in a hard-fought OT battle, which Winnipeg came out on top of 2 weekends ago now in the MFHL. And yeah, also showed you some MMJHL game day highlights. Since we also cover that league, we'll have games, plenty of them coming up in that league in January, February, and March, as well as in playoffs on G Show Productions, your home for hockey here in Manitoba. But yeah, we showed you the standings here. The Winnipeg Avros on top. Interlake still in last place. Central Plains has gotten a bit of separation from Interlake, even with 2 more games played than them at this point. But as for the power rankings, there's been a bit of a shift. The Capitals getting a huge boost up based off of their past weekend of play, getting some wins in there for the Wildcats. They moved down to 9th. Last place in the power rankings, simply because this team hasn't won a game in quite some time now, on I believe a 8-game losing streak. So things have been looking bleak for the Wildcats, for the Wheat Kings, of course, in their past weekend of action to end things off. This year they ended up beating the Interlake Lightning, so they end up getting a swing up in the power rankings. The Selects, Avros, Ice, Chiefs, they all remain the same for the Ice. Like in their last weekend of play going in, they ended up not losing games, so I couldn't drop them down. Actually, yeah, we're going to change something up here in a moment, because I misread the schedule, so we're just going to change this up for a moment. But yeah, I should have the Yellowhead Chiefs over the Winnipeg Ice, which we are fixing right away, right here. Simply for the fact that Pembina Valley ended up taking that game against the Winnipeg Ice on Wednesday night in the league, which ended up being a pretty big night for Winnipeg Avros star forward Rio Pierre, which we'll get into in just a moment. So, let's see here. Bear with me, folks. By the way, we're going to be coming out with new episodes starting in 2025. Can't wait for it. We're going to feature more players from around the league here on the show, as well as, looking more into the Saskatchewan League, as that is a league which is pretty important for the MFHL, given that the winner of this league plays the winner of that league in the West Regionals to see who goes and qualifies for the SO Cup. Here we are. So the Chiefs end up moving into 3rd place in the power rankings. Yeah, a huge win against the Winnipeg Avros in that shootout, 2-1. And yeah, with the Winnipeg Ice nearly going perfect on the weekend, but not quite. Yeah, that's why they get bumped down 1 spot, given that Yellowhead ended up having a huge weekend for themselves. Power Rankings brought to you by Make Canada Fasteners and Tools, your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. As for what I was talking about with the Avros, Rio Pierre, a huge night for her on Wednesday as she scored 4 times. Set an Avros record, as I had a chance to talk with head coach Ashley Van Aglen. And Ashley ended up saying to me that she broke a record 4 straight goals, which hadn't happened before. It's happened where a player on the Avros have gotten 4 goals in the game, but never 4 consecutive. So congratulations to Rio. She also reaches the 50-point mark, the fastest out of any player in the league, now at 54 points. I believe it's Nora Collins who holds the record for scoring in the league. We still haven't been able to confirm this, since it is not found anywhere, archived anywhere on the MFHL's website, but I believe she had under 60 points. If that's the case, like, another Avro is about to break the record, and Rio Pierre's done it in fast fashion, maybe faster than anyone has in MFHL history. What a season it's been for number 9, the second year forward only for the Winnipeg Avros. And I can't even imagine how good Rio's going to be next year. But let's cherish this time as well, because we're seeing something that I don't think has ever been done in this league before at this pace by none other than Rio Pierre this year. Izzy Mann making her appearance into the top of the point leaderboards for the first time this season, also top 4 in goals, tied with Jessica Anderson. Nice to see some Winnipeg Ice representation finally in these top 5s. It's been a while. I've been waiting. And Izzy Mann, the first one to make her appearance out of any of her teammates in these lists. As for goaltenders, Addison Tomes, 5 shutouts on the season. Unbelievable so far. But yeah, that's how the top 5 shakes out. On our stats, brought to you by McKenna Fasteners and Tools for the MFHL. As for Week 9 award winners, congratulations to Nicole Rozdeba and to Elise Denbo for winning their respective award categories. For Rozdeba, Offensive Player of the Week, Elise, Defensive Player of the Week. Congratulations to them on taking home those award honors. As for our award favorites, Rio Pierre leads the way in the MVP category. Veda Rigo leads the way in the Defensive Player of the Year category, getting it done on both ends of the ice, leading all defensemen in points so far in the league, and also been a staple on that back end for this Eastman Selects team so far this year. Same within net. They got arguably the best goaltending tandem in the league. I think so far by the stats, you can make the argument that they do. And Addison Tomes has been exceptional. Over 960 save percentage, 5 shutouts so far this year, and one of the best records in the league. As for Rookie of the Year, Wozniacki for the Winnipeg Ice leads the way, as she has been very impressive for the Ice so far this year. Taking a look at the point leaderboards, Wozniacki, taking a look at where she lines up. So we take a look. But nonetheless, I mean, she scored some big goals this season. Been very impressive to me. Honestly, you'd also put Isabelle Labossiere in that conversation too, with how good she's been. We might even update that coming into 2025. Hadn't really thought about Labossiere. I don't know why. She's been sensational so far this year in that net backstop in that team. But yeah, if the season ended today, these would be the playoff matchups. One best 2 out of 3, which would be Capitals taking on the Interlake Lightning. The Lightning and Caps, bottom of the league right now. They'd play in that play-in series to face off against who would be the number 1 team in the league right now in the Winnipeg Avros. Eastman would get the Brandon Wheat Kings. Winnipeg would get the Westman Wildcats. Would be the finals rematch in the very first round, and Yellowhead and Pembina Valley would go to battle. I think all series would be intriguing, to be honest with you. Like, you know, those bottom teams and the Capitals and the Lightning would give the Avros probably, you know, a test early on, at least in that series. I think the Avros would be too much to handle as the series goes along. For Eastman, I just think they're too good for... You know, I think that obviously Brandon would give them some battles too, I think. I don't think anything is going to be necessarily easy here in the playoffs, but I think that Eastman's skill level would kind of take over as that series progresses against Brandon. For the Winnipeg Ice and Westman Wildcats, it really depends. Can Westman get out of that funk? Because at one point, this team was 8-3 in the season, in the standings, one of the top teams in the league. For the Winnipeg Ice, they've gone in opposite direction, getting better and better as this year goes along. And Yellowhead and Pembina Valley. Yellowhead, of course, with hopes to make it back to the Final Four and maybe even further. And for Pembina Valley, looking to be spoilers this year in the MFHL. As, they've been... surprising some teams, I think, so far this year, and isn't that the way it usually goes in the MFHL? It seems like any team has a chance to beat anybody on any given night, as me and Brad talked about earlier on. But as for the Interlake Lightning, this team's been in games despite their record. They've been playing with, I think, more desperation as the season goes along, getting more comfortable with each other. There's some players that, of course, are newcomers to this year's Bolts team, right? Players like an Oriana Kennedy in net, for example. And I think looking at some of the talent they lost, including the Rio twins, that's definitely a huge blow for a team that it's usually tough, for Interlake at times, or usually throughout their whole time here in this league to boast the same type of talent that other teams have on their rosters, given that the Interlake area just over time has proven not to be the strongest overall when it comes to the female game, right? But nonetheless, no matter what the talent or skill level is, this team is always going to play with desperation. They're always going to work hard and compete until the very end. This was clear against the top team in the league in the Avros, where they were up 3-1 against them a few weekends ago, and only lost that game 5-4 to the Avros. But the bottom line for this team is their best players need to be their best players, straight up. And in the first win of the season we saw them take this year against the Westman Wildcats, it was exactly that. We talk about, players on this team like Brianne Winross. She gets on the scoreboard. Same with Chloe Minkus in that matchup. And other players stepping up too. This team still has some good pieces. It's a team that plays with a lot of passion, and a team that don't count them out to, make it or to miss, don't count them out of, not making it in the playoffs, because this is a team that, we've been surprised by them before, and they definitely have the makings of being a team that can upset, one of the top teams on any given game. In terms of a series, though, that's a different story, as best 3 out of 5 is a bit different compared to only one game. But as for the Central Plains Capitals, they've been finding their footing a bit. This is a team that, when you take a look at their scores as the season has gone along, like, they end off with a 3-2 loss against the Pembina Valley Hawks on Sunday, so that was a tight one. They took care of business against Interlake, won 4-1 the day before on Saturday. Yes, lost 5-1 to the Winnipeg Avros, but they've been close in some games against these Winnipeg teams so far this year. They've had a chance to go out and, be close against a team like the Yellowhead Chiefs as well. So they're playing good hockey against really good teams in this league so far. I think that for Central Plains, with how young their team is, they're maybe a bit more behind in the process compared to other teams that have a bit more experience and veterans on their, roster. But as the season goes along and Central Plains, continues to get adjusted to this league for the players that are there, that are young on this team, I think that we're going to see the level of play get even better with this group. I like their coaching staff a lot, led by Ferdy Nellison as the head coach. And I think that, if the Caps want to get the best out of this group, Elise Denbo is by far their best player, and she's going to be the X factor for this team. And honestly, their success, if they go far in the playoffs or not, if that even happens, it is going to ride on her. And Olivia May is solid in net too. We had a chance to watch her. I thought that she held her own pretty well against a good Winnipeg Avros team. But not many goaltenders are Elise Denbo and have the skill that she has. And she's going to have to find another gear in her game to really lift the Central Plains Capitals team of a championship. And I'm not sure if that's the ultimate goal, but I'm sure, the veterans on the Central Plains team, even though there aren't many of them compared to other teams, would definitely like to see some playoff success. So we could be seeing another version of Elise Denbo, an even better version of her, given that it's her last season in the league this year. They're trying to find another gear in the playoffs. It's what can her team do in front of her. And we know that on paper, Central Plains, much like Interlake, yes, they're young. You could make an argument maybe they have more skill on paper, but they're overmatched by a lot of teams in this league. So maybe you go to a more defensive first mentality, really trust in Elise Denbo, and look for more of your opportunities and try to, cash in on those more. So I think that could be the play for Central Plains, who is tied with the Brandon Wheat Kings in the standings, punched in the mouth as of late, as some tough scores against the Winnipeg Avros and Winnipeg Ice, tough to swallow for sure
for this Brandon Wheat Kings team, as they were shut out, I believe, in all 3 matchups against those Winnipeg teams. Also lost 2-0 against Eastman recently, but won against the Interlake Lightning. This is a team that's obviously, like me and Brad talked about, not played as much compared to other teams, but how do you respond now? This is a team that obviously players on the squad have played together with each other in the past, but they're reunited for the first time in a while, maybe. Yes, some of these players played with each other on their teams in the MFHL last year, but overall, we talked about it before, it's a new group, and what a great challenge this is for a coaching staff that's also new to this age group at this AAA level. I think that Brandon, when watching them, they have the pieces to be a team that can still improve and, potentially get a bit better in the standings as the season goes along. I believe that, maybe this is a team that could surprise people in the playoffs because, look, even though they've been outshot in most of their games so far this year, they got Danica Averill in net, a goaltender that can backstop them to potentially long ways in the playoffs if she gets hot, right? And if you're just able to do enough in front of her, it's going to come down to buying in and executing on the systems that are in place for this Brandon team. And if you can continue to do the little things right with this team continuing to play more games, and if they can get a few more wins under their belt and gain confidence, maybe we start to see Brandon start to move up more in the standings as this season goes along. As for the Westman Wildcats, the losing streak continues. They have not won a game since mid-November. Now, this is a young team, and this is one of those moments where, for a young team, it could be, demoralizing losing this much, or you can choose to take another route, to choose to be like, hey, we're close in some of these games, we just can't quite get that final result yet. Can we keep pushing? Can they continue to stay positive and to keep pushing this season? And I think that Westman, them being in these games and losing the way they have as of late, like, they've been close. They're a goal or two away, a bounce or two away from winning, right? They lose 2-1 to the Avros in a shootout on Saturday, 4-2 to the Ice. On Sunday, 3-1 to Yellowhead last Friday. 2-0 to Yellowhead the Sunday before. So it's not like they're getting blown out, and I think you got to take some optimism away from that, being that this is a young team. Now, how do you get out of this rut? A win would definitely help. I think that once you get one, potentially this team could get hot again, because once you find that type of confidence again and you get that feeling, it could be hard to let go of. And I think for this Westman Wildcats team, it would do wonders for their confidence, because sure, the top end scoring has come from their veterans when we talk about players like Ivy Perk and Reese Schutte, but there's young players on this team that could definitely use that confidence boost. And I think getting a win, getting that to fall in the win column could be exactly what this team needs. As for the Westman Wildcats, yeah, they're still, 6th place in the league. They have a chance to very well move up in the middle of the standings. Going to be a huge test back first against the Eastman Selects, which we'll be talking about them coming up here soon. As for the next team we want to talk about, though, the Pembina Valley Hawks, they're in the middle of things right now. 5th place in the standings. They're, when taking a look at it, with their 8-11 record, only 4 points out from the Yellowhead Chiefs. They're tied with the Westman Wildcats in the standings. This team has a lot of game breakers on their team, top end talent wise. When you talk about Jessica Anderson, Cassie O'Brien, as my voice starts to go here. But yeah, they got players that can, kind of change things on the dime for this team and can get a quick goal when you need them to. The thing is, though, who outside of these game breakers are going to step up, and can this team search for, some good consistency? We haven't exactly seen that in their net so far this year, as Rakowski, as well as Freeze.
Freeze with a bit over 900 in her save percentage, but Rakowski, who's played more games overall, at 895 save percentage. And then as good as players like Cassie O'Brien, Jessica Anderson, and Abby Bregar, all with over 10 goals. Anderson and O'Brien with over 20 in total games played. Brig with 12 in total games played. The next best player after that is Rory Perrin. So can you find consistency in net as well as on the back end? We've seen this Pembina Valley Hawks team at times get outshot by a fair amount in games, but when they are on their game and they can start to get their attack going, this is a team that we've seen some good moments from them, but can we see more consistent moments from this team in terms of getting more consistency throughout 60 minutes? And can you get more from outside of your game breakers in Anderson, O'Brien, and Brig? It's going to be interesting to see for Pembina Valley coming up, as they'll be back in action before we know it, along with all the rest of the teams here in the Manitoba Female Hockey League. As for the Yellowhead Chiefs, they played spoiler versus the Avers in Shoal Lake with that 2-1 shootout win. They're coming along quite nicely. And yeah, I think what's great for this team is not only are you getting your veterans to step up, but rookies like Roz Deba, who was just named Player of the Week, right? I think that's really nice for Derek Tibbetts to see, because if you can truly get that good, type of success from your vets, which they've gotten that so far this season, from players like Kirby Gray, as well as players like Grace Kirk. But if you're able to get those younger players to step up too, right, like the Rose Dabas, it makes all the difference if you're able to have that high level of success from your vets as well as from your rookies. And this is a team that, of course, led by their vets, and has also been really benefiting from some strong play in net from Claire Merckx, who is top 5 in the league in wins and has a pretty darn good save percentage as well. So yeah, overall, I mean, the vets have been doing most of the heavy lifting for this Yellowhead Chiefs team. They're going to be the key in the end, but when you're able to get, that type of success from players like Roz Deba, and you're able to get that type of goaltending this Yellowhead Chiefs team has gotten. This is a team that plays teams really tight and really, stays with them throughout games. Here in the MFHL, Derek Tibbetts has this team coached and playing very well so far, and he's been talked about as one of the best in-game coaches in the league in terms of the changes and adjustments he makes with this staff that he has in terms of this personnel of players, and with him having another year under his belt from last year coming into this year. If this Yellowhead Chiefs team is able to put it all together, they are a team that shocks some and upset some of the top teams in this league before. They are one of the top teams in the league, and they'll be looking to continue to be that moving on into the upcoming games on their schedule to end off this year, heading into playoffs. The Winnipeg Ice, they're finding their game as well. They've retooled, right? It's not any longer about just one player, really, or a few players. It's been a collective effort so far this year from this Winnipeg Ice team. We've seen players step up. Wazdesensky, like talked about, she's been sensational as a rookie. Same with Kate Karen, she's been really solid. But we're also seeing players step up this season. Showed her in the stats. The first Winnipeg Ice player to be in a top 5 this year here on the show in Izzy Mann, their captain. And your captain has to be your best player usually for you to have success. And Izzy Mann has been no exception to that. She has been really fun to watch. But then we're also seeing players like Cassie Carvalho, rounding out her game more so this year, being an ultimate 200-foot player. We've seen Bailey Grunwald come up with huge saves too, and also seen some good contributions from their backup goaltender on paper in Gina Plett. Eugene Kaminsky talked to me about his team after their win against the Eastman Selects. Or I guess I reached out, I said, Eugene, heck of a win. Said it was an exciting game to watch. And he said that win against Eastman was a huge game for them, showing that they could go out and actually do it and beat, a top team in the league, which has been a struggle, for the Winnipeg Ice this year, which they started off undefeated. They go on a losing streak. Then they go away, play some tournament games, get some more confidence, and that confidence is built into this team right now being third place in the standings, looking to track down those top two, as there's plenty of season to still be played here in the MFHL. But as for the teams that are above them, let's get into them now. And the Eastman Selects, the hottest team in the league heading into the break. This team has about one loss in their last 12 games. It's hard work mixed with skill. This is a team that you can make an argument got even better during the offseason. Yes, they lose the likes of players like Ginger Fast, Oriana Kennedy, a solid goaltender, ends up going over to the Interlake Lightning. But what do? Well, they bring in a goaltender who made it to the finals last year at the U15 MFHL level in Isabelle Labossiere. In the tryout process, yes, they end up losing Adeline Nolgren as well, but they bring in the Rigaud twins. And yeah, to see players like Sophia Heidinger having the type of impact she's had so far this year in her third year with the team, seeing second-year players like Isabella Carrier continuing to be really impactful. Same with players like Shannon Scott Cook. Heck, we're even seeing, a player like Caitlin Schroeder be very effective on things like the forecheck, doing the little things right. They just got a great mix of players that work hard, and it's mixed with a high level of skill. Defensive dominance is something that comes to mind when you think about this team so far this year. It's not like they only have 22 goals against or anything, right? It's unbelievable what they've been able to do throughout these 20 games. They're committed to blocking shots. They're not going to let you breathe. By basically being on you hard all game long. And this is a team that's done a very good job at protecting the middle of their zone. And when, things do kind of fall apart, their goaltenders have been there to backstop it. And Addison Tomes and Isabelle Labossiere. This is a team that is, of course, motivated to make it back to a Final Four, a team looking to take that next step. And it's a team which, once they get on their cycle game and they start to get you hemmed in, they're holding the line the way they have been this season. There's not many teams that have had success or been able to have success against Eastman so far this year. And if you take a look at their losses, they've all been by one goal. So yeah, them also being able to actually go out and beat top teams this year consistently. Like, they beat teams like the Ice and the Avros last year. It's still to be answered, is Westman truly their kryptonite, because they got a loss against them, of course, this year. But yeah, against the Winnipeg Avros, a team that's an offensive juggernaut, you hold them to 0 goals and you win 1-0 in overtime. And even in that game against the Winnipeg Ice, you were close. You just needed a bit more. Eastman's here. They've arrived. And this is a team playing with a lot of confidence right now, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. This is a team that is among favorites to make the finals right now. Let's see if they can hold up and do it come playoff time. But they aren't the number one team in the league right now. That being the Winnipeg Avros, who were on a ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous, 15-game losing streak. Tough schedule to end off 2024 for them, though, as they were not only playing against teams like the Westman Wildcats and the LA Chiefs, but traveling to play at Shoal Lake as well as in Hartney. Still, though, they come away with only one loss on the weekend. This has been an offensive juggernaut all season long. We take a look at the standings once again. 99 goals for. No team's even close in that aspect. Similar to how no team's really even close to being as defensively dominant as the Eastman Selects. But this Winnipeg Avros team, led by Rio Pierre, her elevating her game has, just made that top line even better this season. But then you look at the depth they have outside of her. Callie Lavalley's top 3 in the league in goals. Well, she plays on the Avros top 2 lines in the top 6. Not on the first line, but on the second line. So they got levels to what's an offensive juggernaut of a team. Then you look at their back end and players like Evie West can step up and contribute offensively. You look at her defensively, one of the best defensemen at shutting down players on the rush in the league. Same with Shortridge as well as Turner on their back end. And we speak about goaltending tandems. Well, this team's goaltending tandem is pretty darn good too. In Anna Almeida and Madeline Sylvester, who have been backstopping this team so far this year. They're great on special teams. This team, like the Eastman Selects, are built with a mix of skill, and this is an Avros team that also works hard, like the Eastman Selects, and we saw that in that thriller of a 1-0 OT win that Eastman had a few weeks ago on the network. But the thing is, the Avros have had fantastic teams in the past. Maybe they haven't had a player, and I don't think any player has had this type of Star Tour year, as I said in Rio Pierre, right? Like, maybe they've never had that good of a talent before in their program, but they've had teams that have been similar to this in skill level. And, you know, Ashley Van Aglen, the one thing that she's still chasing as a coach in this league is a championship. I know she might not come out and outright say that, but that's really the last thing that she needs to accomplish here in female hockey. One of the most decorated coaches in our game today. But it's about doing the thing for the Avros. It's about, can you break through and get mentally tougher when the going gets tough? Because we didn't exactly see that last year with them, of course, infamously blowing that 2-0 series lead they had against the Yellowhead Chiefs. So there's still a lot of season left to be played, and it's great that the Avros are at this point. But can you go out and finish the job now? Because for this team at this point, you got all the right stuff to go out and win a championship. You've been chasing it for years as a franchise, and, you know, stay in the present, yes, but yeah, really excited to see if this team truly has what it takes to win a championship. Do they have what it takes to do the thing? Well, we will find out coming up this year, as we'll be starting our road to the West Regionals portion of our podcast season for this podcast, the MFHL podcast, coming up in 2025. We're going to take a transition here, and I'll be back with some final words coming up next here on the last episode of 2024 for the MFHL podcast on G-Show Productions. Well, you made it to the end of this edition of the MFHL podcast Christmas special for 2024. I've been your host, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth. Special thanks to Brad Kirk for joining this edition of the MFHL podcast and being the guest. Merry Christmas to him and his family, as well as to all of our viewers who celebrate. Happy holidays to you all, and wishing you all the best in 2025 and a happy new year. New episodes of the MFHL podcast come out starting in the first 2 weeks of 2025. Details will be on our website as well as on our social media platforms. What we're going to be doing is looking more at the Saskatchewan League and taking a look at who their top teams are this year. So far, we may even start to interview some guests from that league coming up to pair with our MFHL coverage on, of course, our MFHL podcast. But what you can be expecting is more games, playoff games at that, as we're very excited for February to hit for that reason. But more video, more stats, more graphics, different graphics, better graphics, all that good stuff coming up in 2025. I can't wait. I hope you can't wait as well, MFHL fans. And yeah, also, if you notice, the outfit different from what I was wearing with Brad. Yeah, this is a Christmas present I got. New hoodie as well as a new hat. Comment down below if you got a Christmas present that was your favorite. Would love to hear about it, or what you got in general. Always fun to hear what people got. But yeah, speaking of that, Christmas, that is the day, of course, and I got a lot of spending time to do with family. Christmas dinner coming up here in the next few hours, so I'm gonna let you all go. I wish you all the best, of course, like I said, in 2025. Thanks for tuning in to the home of hockey here in Manitoba, everybody, on your home of the MFHL on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. Thank you to Terrico Goaltenders, Mid-Cannon Fasteners and Tools, and Terrico for sponsoring another edition of the MFHL podcast. We'll see them, players, coaches, and all of you again in 2025. Until then, folks, it's Graham the G-Show Forsyth giving you the peace out and waving so long for this final time in 2024. Merry Christmas once again, and we'll see you next year, everybody. Take care.